Hi everyone, it's Melissa, and today I am reviewing Severance by Ling Ma. This is an apocalyptic zombie story that I thought was just so well done. I think it would be something that would appeal, of course, to people who like to read dystopian or apocalyptic books. But if that's not something you're into, I would still recommend this. I am going to make this a spoiler-free review so that if you're on the fence about reading this, watch the review and maybe I'll sway you. This book does something that I really like in horror and apocalyptic books, and that is the people are worse than the monster. So in this case, the other people that our protagonist has to contend with are worse than the zombies themselves. And the zombies in this book are not your Romero zombies. They're not these attacking zombies. They are zombie-like in behavior, but are otherwise not really threatening. They're threatening in terms of being a vessel for contagion, but they're not aggressive. So that was something I really liked, that the zombies were not really the threat in this book, the non-infected people were. So this story unfolds with kind of parallel narratives following our protagonist, Candace. So in one of the stories, we are following Candace before the apocalypse, where she's young. She has moved to New York City to start a career. She gets into a relationship. And the other story that we kind of cut back and forth to is Candace post-apocalypse, where she has met up with a small band of survivors and they are trying to reach this facility that one of them knows about, where they think they will be safe and where they can start their own community. And things culminate to a head in each story, in the pre-apocalypse and post-apocalypse stories. So in the pre-apocalypse story, we are following Candace dealing with her life, everyday things, and how that changes as the world slowly collapses, and also how it doesn't change as the world slowly collapses. The monotony of certain things in her life continue. And that story really culminates to the point where Candace is alone in New York City and is seemingly the only survivor. In the post-apocalypse story, we are following Candace as she is dealing with other people. She has joined this band of survivors and she is trying to forge friendships while mitigating conflict and trying to avoid people she thinks might be dangerous. And of course, she's thinking about, how they're going to build a community when there are so few people left. And some of those people are starting to overstep their boundaries and kind of change up the dynamic of the group. And that story is culminating to a point of conflict within the group and how that plays out. I thought both of the stories were very interesting. And another thing I really liked about this book was the atmosphere. I thought it was very interesting how the pre-apocalypse sections had the same tone as the post-apocalypse sections. There was a real sense of millennial disillusion, of monotony, of drudgery. There was a sense that Candace felt her life had no real meaning inside of this hamster wheel. There are a lot of really interesting themes in this book. And first, I just want to talk about the title and how perfect it is. Because this book does talk about severance and the ties that are lost to a lot of different things. Obviously, in an apocalyptic book, the ties that are lost to the world as a whole, to the world as we know it. But even before the apocalypse hits in this book, there are these other moments of severance throughout the story. Candace's background is that her parents and her were immigrants. Her mother and father left for America, left her behind in China to live with her grandparents for a while, while they established themselves in the US and then sent for her. So it's a story of immigration as well. And there are these themes of severance in terms of severance from family and severance from like country and culture. And as Candace grows and becomes an adult, there are other moments of severance in her life, from relationships, from ambitions, from her passions in life. But there was also a counterpoint. There was a theme of reconnection as well, like the desire to reconnect with past ambition or passion, to reconnect with family or relationships, or to create your own family or your own new community. So what I liked in this book was, as I mentioned, this trope that we sometimes see in horror and apocalypse where the main antagonist is other people and not necessarily the monsters or the apocalyptic situation. It's not outside forces, it's not environmental catastrophe, but it's the human element of the story where your conflict and where your connection comes from. That's what I always find most interesting, and I think Ling Ma did that really well here. I also really liked the atmosphere and the feeling and the tone of this book. The drudgery, the disconnect, this like automated nature of life. And another thing I really liked in this book was the building of tension, both in the pre-apocalypse and post-apocalypse stories. I think they paralleled really well and they were both as interesting as each other. There was really only one thing that I disliked about this, and it was the length. I think it could have done with another 25 or 50 pages of the post-apocalypse story. I think the pre-apocalypse story was flawless, but I felt I could have used a little more time with the survivors and building up the other characters and building up the relationships between the different survivors and between Candace and some of the people she meets. It is a very minor thing. I think on the whole, this book is just excellent, and I encourage you to pick it up. It is definitely more on the literary end of dystopian apocalyptic literature, and I think it would appeal to a lot of different readers. So those are my thoughts on Severance. If you've read the book, please comment below what you thought about it. I hope you enjoyed this review, and we'll chat soon. Take care. Bye.